We're going to get started in a few minutes. I'm going to get us set up on our live streams. And today's conversation is all about family business. It's a family affair. It's a family affair. Y'all like my singing? Thank you. Loving the hair. Thank you so much. Just got it done yesterday, actually. So put your city and state in the chat for us as well. So again, we can recognize you. I'm just getting all my stuff set up here. We've got a couple of guests coming on tonight, a couple of members to talk about their family businesses. Our third guest, unfortunately, she is not able to attend. She got COVID. So I'm hoping that she has a speedy recovery. But in the meantime, I was also part of a family business, so I can tell you my experience with that. Again, don't forget to put your city and state in the chat for me so we can say hello to you.
Hey, Sheree.
Hello.
Hi. Did I join correctly?
You certainly did. We can see you. We can hear you. You're in the right place. Yes, you are.
There we go.
Yeah, so we're going to wait. Our other guest told me she was going to be in the car. So we're going to see when she pops on. We'll give her another minute. I don't have any lipstick on, so y'all are seeing the production and process here. But it is 6:02. We've got DMV in the house. We've got Orlando. Hope everyone is doing well in Florida. I know y'all are still cleaning up from the storm. We got Atlanta in the house. Hello to everybody. Hello. And everybody in YouTube, don't forget to give us a thumbs up as you all are coming in. Facebook give us a thumbs up as well. And let's just get started. Let's just jump right in. So, today's conversation is actually courtesy of Tawana. Because Tawana, I don't know how she found out, but she found out that Kendra, who is a longtime friend of both of ours, joined her family business. And she said, Sheree, hey, I think it would be, fun to talk about this. And it's actually a trucking business. So we could talk about both things. We could talk about the family business. We could talk about the trucking business, because I know that there are people who sometimes are interested in that. Mm-hmm. I also was part of a family business. I helped my mother grow her accounting firm years ago. I could tell you what we did right, or we didn't do so right, so we can kind of just, because people think that having a family business is, like it either goes totally well or it totally sucks. And the truth is, depending on the family members you have, is kind of somewhere in between. The one really interesting thing is that there are very few reasons you'll be fired from the family business. No, I'm serious. Or laid off from the family business is very true. And the other thing is you do tend to spend the holidays and things like that talking about the business as well. So, everything can become a tax write-off if you know how to write off the meals and entertainment. So with that, I just want to let everybody know, if you're not familiar with the 10K Project, we are the largest community of investors who actively fund Black-owned businesses. We do that through something called equity crowdfunding, and it's basically very simple. It's when a whole bunch of people get together, put in small amounts of money, and a business is able to use that money in order to grow. It is governed by the Securities and Exchange Commission and FINRA, so it does have some government oversight to it. And if that business does well, that business that we invest in does well, then we as the investors get to participate in the upside and the success of the business. If it doesn't do well, that's not a problem. The whole thing is to build a portfolio of businesses. And, this is how the rich get richer, basically. So you may hear it called venture capital or, things like that. We are everyday venture capitalists. So that sounds like something that is of interest to you. Definitely consider being part of the 10K project. We are at the10kproject.com, the10kproject.com. So that's my spiel. Now let's get into these family businesses, Kendra. I haven't seen you in forever either, so it's good to actually see you. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what was your pathway to actually getting to the family business?
So I was initially working at a tax firm for 2 years. And it was growing, everything was going well. And you get to a point when you realize, am I living life on purpose? And are you the funds that or the efforts that you are giving, are they beneficial to yourself? I have two daughters. Was it beneficial for us? And it just came to a point where I realized, my family mattered more. Um, Sometimes jobs can start to require more from you than they're willing to compensate you for, especially when you are a salaried employee. And I was just getting to a point that I was running the company by pretty much running the company. And it wasn't my company. My name wasn't on it. It wasn't my EIN. So it just didn't make sense anymore. And so I had spoke to my sister. I'm just like, sis, I'm in a place right now. I'm really focused on family, making sure my girls are good. And work is just starting not to make sense for me anymore. And, she says to me, well, we were hiring for an admin position. And at the moment, we need the help. And I was like, well, hey, where can I apply? and,
What you
my
mean she didn't ask you for a resume? She didn't ask you for
no,
a background check. She didn't ask you
no,
to pee in a cup.
none of that. I mean, I got the spoil system all the way.
She just said
Nepotism at
show
its
up. She
highest.
just said show up tomorrow at 9 a.m. Right?
When can you start? I said, well, let me put in the 2 weeks notice and then I can start.
Yeah, and that's one of the great things about having a family business is if something happens, you always have something to fall back on. It's
Mhm,
a great place for you to kind of stretch your wings and get all sorts of experience that most people
mhm,
wouldn't give you. And then, be able to kind of branch out, but still have equity in the business and things like
mhm.
that. So tell us more about this sliding into the business. You became an admin for your sister's company, and then what?
And so they were in need at the moment of hiring drivers. It is a trucking company. It's called
Mhm.
MSK Trucks, meaning
Okay.
my sister's keeper.
Oh,
That's what
wow.
MSK stands for. And my sister, and I have an honorary sister too. It's her best friend. Her name is Zaneta. My sister's name is Candace. They started the company in June of 2020, pretty much the same time I had started my moving company. She hauled it.
Okay.
So it was crazy that was both in the transportation industry. My sister and I, we lost my brother in 2014, and
Hmm.
he was a truck driver. He drove
Oh,
18-wheelers. That's what he did.
wow.
And so it's kind of like we're carrying on his legacy because he loves trucks.
Mhm.
He loved even having toy trucks at that. Like he would build collectible trucks and want to put them in shows. So this was just carrying on my brother's legacy. And I was just excited to be able to join them in that way, to
Mhm.
help them move that forward. And so when they were looking for a recruiter, that's my background anyway. I
Mhm.
did technical recruiting in IT. And if you can be an IT recruiter and don't have a technical background, you can recruit in any industry if you know how to recruit out of a technical industry.
That is
So I
great.
came in recruiting drivers. I was so surprised at what I remembered. Just your skill set, it will
Hmm.
always transfer over into other industries. And I remember I was flabbergasted at first when I had first got started because these recruiters were charging like two
They
thousand to
charge a
three
lot of
thousand
money.
dollars
Hmm.
upfront. And
Hmm.
upfront, this is even before qualifying the driver and
Yeah.
putting them on the insurance. I mean, they guarantee that they'll be qualified, but still, you're paying this upfront. And
Hmm.
sometimes you get a 30 to a 90-day guarantee that they'll stay
Hmm.
before you can even qualify to get your money back. And I'm like, well, I'm not about to work with a recruiter and pay them that much money to do the same thing that I can do. We're going to pass there. I'll take over this department here and help you guys run it. And then it became funny because when I had talked to my sister Zaneta, they offer so many services. Like this company, MSK Trucks, is a one-stop shop all
Hmm.
around it. I love it. And what I mean by that is they offer the recruiting services. That's what she would like to do, is offer recruiting services as well.
Okay.
Not only that, she offers audit and compliance services as well to the carriers that needs to be FMCSA certified. That's the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration.
Hmm.
It helps owner operators or just logistics companies become compliant to be able to operate as a transportation company. I mean, this goes down to getting your MC, your DOT number. It comes down to making sure your EIN is together, making sure you have the correct amount of insurance, and even your driver files. I don't think people know how important it is for those driver files to be up to date. I mean, when I first saw a driver file, I was overwhelmed. I was like, who's going to do that? That's a whole
You.
lot of information. How do we gather this information? We do what? I hope y'all charge for this.
So,
Because
okay,
it
so
is
that's interesting. So you didn't know any of those things. So they
so
basically just, it was trial by fire for you?
it was. It was. I kind of just jumped in and I
Uh-huh.
came and kind of sat back for the first 2 weeks to get the
Hmm.
flow of
Hmm.
what things look like because they manage other companies as well.
So
They're one
how long has your sister been in this business? How long she had it?
since June of 2020.
So really not that long. It's a couple of years
Mm-mm.
old. Okay.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right. So I know that your brother was a trucker as well. Did anyone else in your family, like was anyone else in your family in the business?
No,
How did your
no,
sister get to the point where she was ready to expand to even hire an admin, much less you? Like,
busy. Business grew.
okay.
Business grew to where they were able to help manage other companies, meaning
Hmm.
dispatch services for
Hmm.
them. Dispatch services is pretty much finding loads for other companies to run. And when they started to branch out and offer those services, most of them came from compliance services and went over to dispatching services as well. And I thought that was cool. I'm like, so wait a minute. You dispatch for your own company, you run yours, and you dispatch for other companies too? That's amazing to me. I'm like, oh my
Yeah.
goodness, it is so many streams of income just running one trucking company. So I'm like, well, wow. Well, where can I help? And it was just the two of them. And
Hmm.
I'm like, I know how hard it was for me to run my moving company by myself. So I
Hmm.
can imagine how difficult it was just for the two of them to run the company. It's a
Yeah.
lot of work and it never ends. You have to think about when you're out there driving, even at night, you see trucks on the road every day, all day,
Hmm.
2 a.m. in the morning, 5 a.m. in the morning. They're a big part
Hmm.
of traffic backups, our
Hmm.
trucks.
Yeah.
And we're up. We are up at those times, dispatching. Accidents happen, trucks go down, maintenance has to go on. They have to get to a service shop, which are like the TA Petros that we see, the Loves and the Pilots. I never knew those were even service areas. I thought
Hmm.
they just went to fuel up their trucks there. they can actually get maintenance and
Yeah, they
repairs
do.
done at those locations too. Not only that, they can come out and do roadside assistance as well.
Mhm.
Never knew that. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is so new to me. And I do understand why people, and I love my sisters that they do this, that people can come to them and they can educate them about the business. Z, my sister Zaneta, she even educates on how to dispatch, how to get started,
Does she
how to
have a
hire
course?
a job.
You
She
should
does,
sound like you
she
selling a
does, she
course.
does.
We
And
should
she does
invite
have
her
a course.
sometime to one of our Tuesday sessions then to like come and talk about her course. But go
Definitely.
ahead.
And she's on tonight too, which is great. She's
Oh, you
watching.
want to bring her up?
I do. If we could, that would be wonderful.
Yeah.
That would
Zaneta,
be
if you can
wonderful.
just put like a one in the chat if you want to come up. I don't want to bring someone up unless you feel ready to come up. So
Oh, they're
definitely let
ready.
me know. Oh, they're ready?
Yes.
She's saying one. Okay. All right. Look, I'll let you up. I'll let you up.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Okay. So, I'll tell you a little bit about our family business story, and I'll also tell you like another story that I heard that was kind of like heartbreaking to me because I think it is important for us to Z, don't forget to put your camera on. Ah, there you go. Yeah. Oh, she like chilling. Um, so like in our business, again, my mother owned a bookkeeping business. She still does. And I like she had grown it. She had gotten some clients and I had helped her like start that, but I was still in corporate America. And then I decided, okay, I want to leave corporate America. I'm going to join the family business. Um, and I became the salesperson in the family
Hmm.
business. So what happened was that I was so good at sales that I brought in like larger accounts for our bookkeeping company that my mother is like, well, you sold all of this. Now you need to go and service these people. That was a big mistake because if we had set it up right, she would have kept me in sales and she would have hired other business plan writers to
Hmm.
actually, sorry, other bookkeepers to actually do the bookkeeping. But my mother is like not really trusting of a lot of people. So it ended up being she, I, and then one other person like running the business. What I'm here to say is if you were able to grow like a family business, where you have one or two family members who are really good at sales and business development, let them run because they can make you multiple millions of dollars a year. Like with Kendra's business, they could get into government trucking and things like that. And, you know, the other thing is that a lot of us as individual family members will have 8 different businesses all running them by ourselves where if we came together as 8 individuals, we could grow a behemoth of a company.
Hmm.
And then our kids, grandkids, great grandkids could always have employment because they could always work in those companies. And you all know I'm always telling you, stop paying your kids allowance. Put them in the family business. I don't care if they're 8 years old, they know how to research, they know how to do stuff, and you can pay them as an employee,
Hmm.
through your company. You could pay them, I think it's up to $1,200. So y'all know I'm always preaching that.
It
The
is up
other
to 1200.
it
I
is
did
up to
that.
1,200. Yeah. I would say check with your accountant for your own individual circumstances, but every accountant I've spoken to has said, yes, yeah, that's the thing, right? The other thing is I was listening to a podcast with a gentleman, and he said that his son, who is 17, is 6'7", towering young Black boy. And his son was trying to find a job. So he would go into these businesses that would have the now hiring sign on the front door, and he would walk in and ask for a job. Put a 2 in the chat if you all think the doors flung open for that 6'7" Black boy, 17 years old. Put a 3 in the chat if you think the door shut. People had a now hiring sign in the door. I'm good. Y'all was seeing the threes, right? He said this man who's probably about 45-ish, he has a 17-year-old son, is saying, nobody will hire my son. And the first thing I thought was, well, where's the family business to hire the son? Right?
Hmm.
Some of us have young male children who, the world sees as scary, right? But
Hmm.
if that child at least had a, because that 17-year-old, to me, that's a child, right? If that child had a family business to come in and work in, like your trucking business, to be able to come work in, things like that, at least they're able to, make money and get some experience and not have the world just slam the door on them like so many times.
Yeah.
Vivian is saying, I couldn't hear last I heard Kendra said, this is so new to me. I went out and came back in, can hear now. Oh, okay, well, just keep listening, Miss Vivian. So I wanted to, just kind of, say both of those things that
Mhm.
um, having these family businesses can be an offensive play with regards to making a tremendous amount of money for the family, but it could also be a defensive play with regards to some of our family members who cannot, for whatever reason, get employment. They can come and still work in the family business. So, with
Very
that,
true.
Kendra, you can introduce Z, and Z can let us know a little bit about herself. Um, yeah, go
Of course. So this is my honorary sister Z. She has
ahead.
been with us for I don't even know the year. She's been with us so long that she's just sister Z now. Her and my sister are best friends. They used to work in insurance. And from there, they joined together and came with MSK, my sister's keeper. So from there, Z, you can take it away.
Hello, everyone. Can everyone hear me? It's yes.
I
Okay.
can hear
Yes.
you.
Okay. Perfect. So my name is Z, like Kendra said. I now run MSK Trucks. With the help of Kendra and Candace. My personal background is I was in insurance for about 14 years. I was a claims adjuster with licenses in over 30 jurisdictions. So I was really nationwide, able to do claims adjusting nationwide. Um, and my specialty was catastrophe claims. So when the big hurricanes and storms happened, we would get deployed to different places and just do that. However, like Kendra mentioned earlier, in 2014, unfortunately, we lost their brother, and he was a truck driver. So when that happened, me and Candace just kind of started researching about what all goes into trucking, especially the hours of service and stuff like that. So from that, we decided that Candace mentioned in passing that he always wanted to have his own truck, and kind of be an owner as opposed to just a driver for a company. So from there, we were like, well, we could start looking into it. So in 2014, we started doing research. But like I said, we were doing claims at that point and being deployed all over the United States. So it took us 6 years to actually start. But we did a lot of research into the industry. And from there, then we started the company in 2020 and right in the middle of COVID. Nobody can believe that we started while COVID, literally like a 2 months after or something like that, is when we closed on our first truck. And it was literally, we had just gotten shut down from COVID. They still couldn't figure out how to get us the contracts for the first truck or anything like that, because they hadn't gone digital because COVID wasn't a thing. So, from there in 2020, we got our first truck. I think we closed on it in October of 2020. And November 13, 2020, we ran our first load under our company, and we've been running ever since. We're now up to 4 trucks, 22 trailers. We actually have 5 trucks, really, because we now have 2 companies. So we have 5 trucks, 22 trailers. I got FMCSA certified to be able to do compliance. So I took a certification course last summer. So not this summer that just passed, but in 2021 to be able to do compliance. Just so that I could also be the company's compliance officer. And from there, I started noticing a lot of gaps within our community for compliance. So I started offering compliance services to different clients. Dispatch service then grew from there, and here we are now.
So we need all the deets. Y'all, put a four in the chat if you want the details about trucking.
And I do want to
We need
add,
all the
Mary,
details. Yes.
where we
Okay. I'm
are
starting to see
now,
the fours coming in. All right.
the moment
So
of growth that
I
we're
have to
going
know.
in.
I'm sorry, say that
I
again.
said, and just to add in there,
Uh-huh.
and you just had mentioned it too. I just want to
Uh-huh.
piggyback off of it when you spoke about the Department of Transportation.
Hmm.
That's my main field that I'm going to be working on is getting us our DBE,
Hmm.
our WBE, which is our your disadvantaged women's distinction, and
Hmm.
also the MBE, which is the minority as well. We want to get all three of those because, as you know, the government
Hmm.
does have set aside specifically
Yes.
if you have those designations. And the
Hmm.
more that you have, the easier it is for your business to stick out. Not only that, I am friends with Kimberly King. She's at the Georgia Department of Transportation. So I actually work with her through the Greater Georgia Black Chamber of Commerce. That's where she and I partnered. I was a community champion with the Chamber of Commerce. And so Kimberly and I were well acquainted. She's just like, Kendra, get those certifications and we can get you guys these contracts and on the road. So that's the other thing. Of course, we're a woman owned company. And being that in a trucking industry, everybody knows trucking is a male dominated industry.
Very much.
So, we're big on disrupting.
Hmm.
That's what we do. So,
Hmm.
us being a woman owned company coming into a male dominated industry and running it well, being on your P's and Q's and understanding what you're doing and deliver on time, that always sets you aside in the first place. So being able to partner with some of these other companies is just helping us be able to build our portfolio when it does coming to grabbing those contracts.
Yeah. Just really quickly, everybody in YouTube, I see you all participating. Don't forget to like the video and share the video as well. So let's talk about these trucks. All right.
Mhm.
So let's talk about the trucks themselves. Um, why did you decide to buy the trucks themselves, like participate in actually the OTR, which stands for over the road, uh, portion of the business? Like, tell us a little bit more about that thought process and how you actually went about buying your first truck, and now you have a fleet of five. Walk us through that.
Yeah, so when we started doing research, we found that there were many different ways to enter into the business. But I'm a believer of I can't ask somebody to do something unless I've done it myself. So we figured that instead of me offering just dispatch service and asking somebody to let me get them a load, let me see if I could get me a load first. So from doing that, it really came down to a decision of the main three trucks that are usually discussed when we come into transportation, which is the Sprinter vans, the straight truck, which is called the box truck as well, or an 18 wheeler. So from the research that I did and Candace did, we found that by by getting the smaller trucks, we were going to be limited in the type and quantity of freight at any given time, as opposed to going to just straight to the 18 wheeler. We would be able to just have our choice in freight. At that point, we could kind of all our pick and choose what we want and have our choice as
You
far
went
as
out a little bit.
drivers on road. Sorry, that's my phone. Um,
You went out.
so
You're still really low.
how about now?
No, I don't
Let
know. Did something happen with your phone?
Yeah, my I got a
Okay,
phone
that
call
I think
and
that's
it's
better.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Okay. So when we decided after we decided about the freight and the quantity, we went for the 18 wheeler. At that point we purchased the first 18 wheeler. So just a little nugget, right? So when you are an investor in trucking, it's a little bit harder to secure that unit because you're high risk. A trucking company, according to FMCSA research, they typically don't make it out of year number two. Most trucking companies get shut down between 18 months and 2 years. And that's either because the regulations that have been failed or poor management of the company. So for that reason, when you are coming as an investor into the industry, they look at you as a higher risk. So typically, your insurance is higher, your down payments are higher, and all of those things. So for us, we had to put a higher down payment for the first unit. It was about 25,000 that we had to put down for the first unit. And it was for that reason because we were considered investors. It was our first MC ever. MC is the Motor Carrier Authority number. So we were looked at as just 100% investors. Now, had we had somebody in the family that had a CDL, even if they weren't going to drive for us, but they were a part of the family and they had a CDL, it would have been much easier because when filling out that application, one of the things they ask you for a commercial truck is, do you have a CDL? Now, if one of the owners of the company has a CDL, your down payment automatically goes down because the way that they consider it is that now that individual that has ownership and a stakehold in the company that has a CDL, should anything happen to the driver, they will be able to keep that truck moving until you get your next driver. So they don't see it as high risk. So typically at that point, your down payment becomes 5 to 10,000, which is a big difference, especially in our community. A 5 to 10,000 down payment as opposed to 25,000, and that's just the truck down payment. That's not including the insurance down payment, all the equipment that has to go inside the truck before it goes on the road. So for us, it was a little bit of a process, but me and Candace at that time were working full-time jobs. We were working 70-hour. I actually had two jobs, two full-time jobs at that time. So we were able to from our own income raise the capital.
Great. So, um, how did you, because I know a little bit about this as well. You had mentioned that you have 5 trucks, but you split it into 2 companies. So walk us through like getting your second, third, fourth, fifth truck, and then why you split it into 2 companies.
Yeah, so the split of the two companies actually happened just by happenstance. I'm in a relationship, and my boyfriend family was interested in starting a company.
Okay.
So we ended up having a meeting, me and Candace and my boyfriend, and it was a decision had been made that it would be best just to keep it separate, just because it would be a whole different family. And we didn't want to start any strife or anything over money because we wanted to keep paperwork clear and all of that. So we started a second MC, and we put the fifth truck got put under that MC, but that down payment came from that family. So that family gave the down payment, and that's how we started the second company. So for that company, we still manage it as if it's MSK trucks. The only thing is that, of course, the bank account, the books, the logo on the side of the truck is different, but it's
Mhm.
still managed as if it was us.
Okay. Yeah. So I know some people who are in the trucking industry and they will separate like every 4 or 5 trucks, they'll separate
Mhm.
it into new companies because you get a lot more flexibility with regards to, contracts and things like that. A lot of trucking entities only will have a limited number of trucks in them. So they won't go above 4 or 5 per entity. So um,
Yeah, so our goal is to eventually just have 5 to 10 on each,
mhm,
and then just manage those 20 and then continue to grow from there. Um, as far as the other benefit of having limited numbers of trucks is your safety scores are easier to fix if you
mhm,
have less trucks because if you have 3 inspections and you failed one, well, automatically you're at 50% for passing or failing. So your safety course is crucial when you're trying to book freight. So it makes a huge difference.
yeah. So, walk us through some of the other income streams, if let's say, because somebody may not want to, have a truck themselves, but there are other ways for people to make income in the trucking industry. So, walk us through some of those options.
Yeah, so the three other options that I think of automatically off the top of my head is becoming a compliance manager. So a compliance manager, basically you put systems in place for other companies, um, in which they go through that system and you manage it for them to be able to keep their driver files, their vehicle files, and just keep record keeping of all of those back office things. With, let's say, with a company of five, that means you have five drivers that you're managing, plus your five trucks, plus your five trailers, right? So now you have 10 pieces of equipment and five humans that have to be managed. Well, one owner can typically do that all by themselves, because a driver file alone, there's about 32 different things that have to be checked off in one driver file. And
Mm-hmm.
all those things have to be checked off before that driver hits the road. And to keep that driver compliant throughout the year, there's things that have to be rechecked and things like that. So becoming a compliance manager or offering compliance services is a great way to get in. It's I say it's a really the lowest cost of entry into the industry. I usually say if you're going to do it, just learn how to do compliance for a trucking company, learn the different systems that are available to keep the records for yourself, so you make a professional presentation. And then you just learn how to manage it and go from there. And it's really, at the end of the day, you're just managing paperwork and managing humans, but still within the industry. So, for example, our company, if somebody wants me to do their driver file, I charge $450 per driver to set them up.
Is that per year, per month?
So that's per driver to set them up.
Oh,
So it's a
okay. So per
one-time
setup.
fee.
Okay.
Right. So it's a one-time fee of 450. Then if I'm going to continue to manage that file for them, if they're not one of my dispatch clients and they're just one of my compliance clients, it's an additional $25 a month per driver. But now if you think about it, you say, well, $25 a month is really nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's about the numbers. Transportation is all about numbers and volume. So if you have five drivers, that's $100 a month that you're really just getting. Don't let anybody hear this, but it's really passive, because you really just kind of on call, right?
Mm-hmm.
Once you set up that driver, you just become the on call person. If they get a citation, if they get a ticket, if they get an overweight ticket, if for some reason they forgot to renew their medical card and we need to now expedite something on the background. So you now become that compliance manager, and you just kind of on call for that driver should they need something. But drivers usually don't need a lot of things. Um,
Are
when
there
it
a
comes
lot
to
of
compliance,
companies? Are
go
there
ahead.
a lot of companies that need this service?
Every transportation company needs a compliance officer.
Okay.
Everybody that has a truck needs a compliance officer. Now, like
Do they
small,
usually do they usually hire somebody as an independent contractor, or is this somebody who's usually like on staff, or is it they're on staff if the company is big enough? Like I'm trying to get a feel for like how big the market truly is for an independent contractor who's
yeah.
doing it by
So
themselves.
yeah, so for example, if it's a trucking company with anywhere from um I would say 3 to 25 trucks, they
Hmm.
typically either hire a third party, because there's huge third party companies out there that are doing this. Like a perfect example is Foley's. Foley does this, and they
Hmm.
are a huge company, and the moment anybody gets an FMCSA number or a DOT number, they start getting emails from all these third party companies that offer the same service. But we, as a culture, we haven't been tapping this market, so there's not a lot of us doing it.
Hmm.
Uh, but the market share is big, because anybody that has a trucking company needs compliance. Now, whether or not they choose to do it, that's a whole different thing. I mean, I have a client right now who is out of service, was put out of service for 30 days because they missed a letter. Now, had they had a compliance officer from the beginning, that compliance officer would have been on top of that letter, and they wouldn't have been put out of service. So what that means to one trucking company, now he's a one truck person, one driver. He missed his deadline. Now he's out of service for 30 days. So the last 12 months that he put in work for to build up his reputation as a transportation company, he lost it all.
Wow.
Now he has to reapply and restart from zero as if he's a brand new baby, and now he's going to have a hard time getting loads for the first 6 months again, because he lost all of that. And that was because he
Wow.
missed one letter. and for not
Wow.
having a compliance manager or somebody that could address it. We a lot of times get scared when we see a letter from the federal government coming our mail, whether it's for our business or a personal letter. But the only way to address it is to deal with it. So you have to open up that letter, make that phone call, and just get the answer and just do what you need to do. At the end of the day, it's an easy process to get this. It's called the new entrant audit. I charge $1,000 to do companies' new entrant audits. I do about one or two a month for different carriers. It takes me about 8 hours to do. But that's just because of all the different steps. But I could really do it in four. But a lot of carriers have issues in their
Hmm.
logs, in their ELDs. Um, but it, it's a quick process. It's a portal. Is you just uploading PDFs, putting together documentation. It's about 10 different documents that you have to submit. Once you submit those, you're done. And that was a quick $1,000. I mean, it takes some people a whole 2 weeks to make $1,000.
That's true. That's true. So when you're looking at the government certifications that you're going after, women owned, minority owned, are you able to leverage those with regards to being a compliance manager? Like, are you able to say, hey, if you're looking for diversity with regards to your, obviously depending on how big or small the company is, right? Some companies don't really care about diversity, but if they have a DEI diversity kind of goal or target, are you able to leverage that?
Yeah, I mean, as long as your company is certified, a lot of times you can leverage that. But what I always say is the good thing about government contracts is that you don't have to own the trucks to do the job, right? But
Hmm.
if you've branded your company as a manager, a compliance manager, or anything in logistics, really, and you get that contract, you could secure that contract and then go find the truck to fulfill it. So, for
Okay.
example, let's say Kendra was her own entity, and Kendra became her own compliance managing company. Let's call it Kendra Inc., right? And Kendra got Kendra Inc. She's DBE certified, and she went after the I don't know, 12 truck contract and she won it, right? Now all she has to go do is go find those 12 trucks because it's under her certification. They're not expecting Kendra to fulfill it. They're just expecting um 12 trucks to fulfill it, right? So
Right.
then it would be up to Kendra to write up who's gonna fulfill it. So yes, you could always leverage your certifications in that manner. As if you win the contract yourself, you would just be the manager of the contract.
Okay. So you mentioned that there are different income streams. So you mentioned the compliance manager. Tell us another one.
So the other one is, of course, dispatching. So dispatching is where you find the loads for other companies. So we have two MCs of our own, like I mentioned earlier, but we also manage four others. We have four other carriers that we pretty much determine their revenue week to week because we're the ones that put the loads on the truck. We're the ones that communicate with the driver. The owners of the fleets just get an invoice from us at the end of the week. They pay us that invoice, but they're really hands off. They don't really have to worry about anything. We take on as much as we need to. The only thing we don't do is pay their invoice for like if the truck breaks down and stuff like that. But we'll find roadside, we'll assist. We're the ones that get the call at 2 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if a truck is broken down on the side of the road. So that's another income stream. So usually, for example, for me, we charge 10% of any gross of the truck. On average, we like to see our trucks grossing about 7.5 to 8,000 a week. So 10% per truck is about 750. Um, and then you have, I think right now we have 11, 15, between 11 and 14 trucks. I really don't know. I stopped counting.
Girl,
But
you better count. You better know how much we got in revenues coming in.
I stopped counting. There's a board somewhere down in the
She
office
just
that
divided it up. That's all. She divided it up.
yeah, I just kind of I memorized it, but I stopped counting how many trucks there are. But so 10% off of those, it adds up at the end of the week. We could
Mhm.
have a week where we book anywhere from 80 to 90,000 worth of freight.
That's great. So tell us some of the downsides of, this company, because you mentioned a couple of times you get the phone calls at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the
Like
downside is
what?
that you're always on call. I mean,
Yeah.
I currently have, I mean, Kendra, I think, has finally taken over one of my phones. But at one point, I had two phones, my
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
personal phone plus my business phone. That phone always has to be answered. If that phone rings, somebody has to answer it, just because that's our 24-hour dedicated line. So it's either a
Mm-hmm.
driver calling, a broker calling for an ETA status update on
Yeah.
a load or something. So that's one of the biggest downfalls, is that you're forever on call. Somebody has to always be available to answer a phone call from a driver or a broker or even a fleet owner.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the biggest downsides for me. Um, and depending on how big or small you choose to grow, your time gets consumed very quickly. Like you wake up at 4 and you're like, oh, it's 6 in the afternoon. I haven't even had lunch, breakfast, or
Yeah.
dinner.
That
So you've
that
just
part.
been working and you don't even realize it. But so that's one of the downsides. But I mean, if you choose to just have, you don't need to be a 15 truck dispatcher, right? There's plenty of dispatchers out there that they just have their five consistent trucks,
Mm-hmm.
and five consistent truck, even making $5,000 a week. That's five. That's what,
25,000 a
25,000
week. Mm-hmm.
at 10%. That's 2,500, and again, that's a lot more than what people are making at McDonald's, or just
Mm-hmm.
even a corporate job,
Mm-hmm.
where you're literally selling your time, that you're getting $1,000 a week paycheck.
Yeah.
Right.
Now I
And I
will
can add
say,
in
go
there,
ahead,
one of
Kendra. I'm
the other
sorry.
downsides are truck repairs.
I was
Truck
gonna say
repairs.
that.
Remember, as these trucks are running, that is wear and tear on your equipment, the
Mm-hmm.
weight of the loads. Sometimes you want to stay below the 42,000. Sometimes these loads are 45,000 pounds, meaning that's going to pull on that truck. That's going to be more fuel costs as well. Then you have to take into the area that the truck is going,
Mm-hmm.
elevation, terrain, mountains, snow, ice. You have to take those things in consideration as well. So that wear and tear on that truck, that comes to maintenance, just like you
Mm-hmm.
maintenance your car. You have to get those oil changes. They call them wet PMs, where they change out all the oils and things. They cost. And then just they break down. That happens. It's not
Mm-hmm.
it's not cheap.
It's
It's not
not.
cheap.
I know someone who had to spend $30,000 getting an engine repaired in the 18-wheeler truck. I was like, I can't. She told me it pains her to write that check,
Those
you
are the
know?
worst checks to write. Like if I tell you how many
Yes.
checks I've written this week, I mean this month, this year, we did a rebuild, that was 33. We did a clutch just last weekend, that was 34. I mean, we did a Park Smart, that was 12. So absolutely, I mean, the revenue and income is there, but the repairs are also there.
And the other thing that she said, because I followed her a while as she was going through this, she gave up her trucks. But the other thing was the drivers. If you could find a good one, great. But there are some of them that they would leave the trucks on the side of the road, or they would leave it at some random place, and she would have to then pay for it to be towed, back, and all sorts of stuff. But she ended up buying a piece of real estate in Texas somewhere, because she discovered, this was her income stream. She discovered that the repair, like owning the repair shop, the truck repair shop, is big money.
Mhm.
And also the truck parking. A lot of
Lot.
people don't think
Yes.
about the truck parking is a big business. So
Yeah.
if you have an 18-wheeler, you can't just park it anywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
You either have to have, like, live in rural America and have like space like on your property for it,
Right.
or if you have a driver that lives in the city or a suburban area, they have to actually go and park in like a truck
Truck stop.
parking area. And a lot
Mm-hmm.
of people don't know this, but there are now safety issues with regards to truck drivers as well. So there was,
Mm-hmm.
I think the legislation was already passed. There were starting, a lot of truck drivers were starting to be robbed and killed.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
And now there's legislation to protect them. So there are designated truck parking areas that are going up all across the country where these truck drivers are able to park in an area that's enclosed and has security and things like that. I had a client who wanted to do a truck parking lot in South Carolina. And, during my research of this, I discovered how big of an industry the truck parking industry actually is. And you don't have to do a lot. All you have to do is have the fence where they're secure
The fence,
and
cameras.
yeah, the fence, the cameras, and because they sleep in the trucks,
They
So
do.
it's not like it's a
Exactly.
motel or anything like they sleep in the trucks. So they're
Right.
used to it, right? So you don't have to do a
Mhm.
whole lot. Yeah. So
And now they're growing as well by they created apps. They even have
mhm,
like the trucking apps for them to
yeah.
locate where's the next truck stop, where's your
Mhm,
next weigh station, where's the scale,
mhm,
where's a fuel station for you. They
mhm.
literally have the apps that show different routes that they can take to get to their locations if they don't want to take certain highways. So just seeing how they develop the trucking industry to make it easy to navigate, especially for newcomers. It's so many platforms out there now. Like she was speaking of the ELD systems, how they track the truckers on where they are. Samsara is what they use. We can see where the truck is, when they got there, the route that they took, everything. They even have how you dispatch the drivers. You dispatch them through an app that way as well. They can get their rate cons. Rate cons are rate confirmations. That's where they're going, where they're dropping off, how much it is for them to do it, your company's name and who you got the contract with. We're able to upload that type of information to the driver. So anytime we need to communicate with them and we can't get them on the phone, you don't want to talk to drivers while they're driving. You want them to pay attention. That's a way that you can communicate with them and they can have all the information that they need.
Yeah. So Miss Vivian has several questions in here. The compliance officer. So she says here, are you an independent contractor as a compliance officer?
So I am. So what I do is that when somebody hires me for compliance, the first thing that I do is send them an agreement, is basically a power of attorney, because everything that I do is on their behalf,
Mhm.
and in their company's name. So I send them a power of attorney. Once they sign that, they send it back to me. And I set everything up in their company's name, is their credit card that gets put on file, all of that information. And then I create a master login, which is my login, and I also give the owner a login, in case the owner ever wants to go check my work or check the file. They need to pull something out of there. They also have access as fleet owners. The driver just has access for uploading information. They don't have access to their driver files, because think of a driver file as their HR file. Basically, DOT requires them to have these files on record for each individual driver, to make sure that you've gone through your qualification process as required by the FMCSA.
Okay. So question number two she had is, who owns the information on the driver, you or the trucking company?
The trucking company. That's why I set everything up in their name. So
Uh,
everything I set up is in their
mhm.
name, in the company's
Okay.
name.
And then her third question is there a confidentiality clause or a non-disclosure agreement? And I would also imagine you might have to sign a non-compete as well, or like a clause where you would take their drivers from them, right?
Yeah. So I mean, I have the agreement. They do sign those things, a non-compete and a non-disclosure, where they don't disclose my systems or anything like that, because not everybody uses the systems that I use. So I don't want them to just be like, "Oh, just use this," and then kind of work
Hmm.
me out. But I do have them sign those things. Um, but to be honest, it's transportation, right? So I'm gonna give
So
you an
people are gonna,
example.
yeah.
I'm gonna
People.
give you an example. So I had a driver who was
Mhm.
with another company. I happened to do the dispatching for that company. That company changed some things. That driver didn't like it. That driver left. But that driver still had my number. Not that I reached out to the driver, and that's not how it happened. The driver called me maybe 60 days later, after he quit the company, and he was like, "Hey, do you know of anybody hiring?" Well, I literally happened to have a truck open, and I was like, "Yeah." I'm hiring. So he came on and now he drives for me. And that's somebody that whose file I did and I was familiar with because I did it maybe a year ago. Um, so it's in transportation, you get to know everybody, unfortunately. And if you're a dispatcher, you get to know drivers because you speak as a dispatcher, you speak to a driver every day or every other day, depending on what kind of driver they are. So if you build a good rapport and a good relationship with those drivers, whether you're dispatching or doing compliance, they will keep your number because they know you're part of the industry and that you could get them somewhere else.
Hmm.
So a driver may call you directly, and if that's the case, you didn't steal that driver. You didn't tell them, "Hey, quit. I'm going to give you a bonus if you come over here."
Hmm.
That's just bad faith and bad karma. So I don't do those things. But in transportation, they always call you back.
Um, Brother Delano is asking, what kind of training do you need to be a compliance officer?
So you just kind of have to learn. So I'm going to be transparent. So FMCSA has everything you need to know for free on their website. There is something called the Green Safety Book that's printed by J.J. Keller. It's a green safety manual. I think you could buy it on Amazon for maybe $35. All of the regulations, everything that's required to be in a driver file is in there. It's 100% free. Now, whether or not you want to sit down and read it, that's a whole different thing, right? If you're gonna sit down and read all 600 and however many pages it is, and because that's a transportation handbook. That's not the trucking handbook. So it talks about school buses. It talks about other type of transportation in there as well, right? So you don't have to. So you learn by doing. So what I've done is I have videos of how I put the different files together, what I look for, the things to stand out, what kind of systems, what systems to put in place, and just the tidbits of what you need to know as a compliance manager, to keep you to basically keep you up to date because the regulations are changing. Think of it, it's government and they're constantly changing laws. If you really think about it, ELDs were not a thing until 2019. So ELDs are fairly new. People are still getting used to using them. Hell, the drivers don't even like them yet. They're so new, but now every truck has to have them.
Yeah.
So yeah, learning an ELD system is new, and the um, now FMCSA also has a course. It's I want to say it's 1,600. It's a 4-day course, but all they teach you is how to understand the Green Book. So they literally go through the Green Book. They give you a PowerPoint. They go through the Green Book. Once you go through that course, that's how you get started compliance certified, because they've shown you how to read and understand and apply the regulations in the Green Book. Um, but most of the times there's really 4 different things that you have to learn about becoming a compliance manager, which is the clearinghouse, the understanding the clearinghouse, understanding the FMCSA website and SMS report, and then setting up drug consortiums because every CDL holder has to be in a drug consortium, and the driver applications and their files.
And I would imagine, oh, can you all hear me?
Yes, we can
Oh,
hear you.
okay. You can, okay. I froze on the screen here. I would imagine that also there needs to be a fifth thing, which is like the business of doing business and of getting business and,
Right.
and keeping clients happy and long term as well.
Hmm.
So, um, now, one of the other income streams doing
So
around the recruiting.
exactly.
So why don't Kendra,
So
why don't you talk a little bit more about like you finding clients and you helping other companies to recruit drivers for them?
Well, the funny thing is, Z actually sprung it on me that she wanted to start
So
offering
blame
that
it.
service. I
I
really
needed
didn't
drivers.
know how to do it for our company. That's what I was doing it for. And she was like, well, Kendra, I was thinking about expanding the recruiting department and offering this as a service to other trucking companies who may need to find drivers. So was new to me. That's how she was expanding. So Z would be the one to expand on how she would like for you that stream of income. I would just be the one working it.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, so I co-owned a truck once few years ago, and the recruiting fees were astronomical. There's like a huge industry with regards to it. And drivers, depending on who they were, some of them didn't stay very long as well. But it was a cost of doing business because if the truck wasn't moving, you're missing $8,000 a week, or you're going to pay this recruiter to find you somebody. So I feel like it's an excellent business if it is something that if something that people are considering doing. So yeah, because the hard part, honestly, and this is what I was told, and you can let me know, Kendra, is finding the drivers. Like finding the clients, that's like the easy part. It's
Hmm.
actually finding the good drivers and matching them to the clients.
It's definitely that. And sometimes it comes down to the personalities.
Mhm.
Sometimes you just won't match with some of the drivers, like you just won't click with them. Especially within this industry, there are drivers who don't stick to what they're supposed to do, meaning they have hours of service that they're able to drive.
Mhm.
Some drivers don't like to go by their hours of service. They don't like to stick to their clock.
Mhm.
Sometimes they call it, I drive like the Russians, meaning they just do what they want to do. And
Uh,
here at this company, we're going to keep you compliant before you go into violation. And so what I noticed when it's come to finding drivers, some drivers, especially with OTR, they don't want to always drive 48 states. Some want to stay away from the West Coast. Some
mhm.
want to stay away from the snow. They want to drive Southeast, Southwest only. They may
Mhm.
want to drive the Midwest only. And it comes down to whether you'll be able to cater to the needs that they want. And I've been noticing you really have to take care of them because they're the ones who are out there driving. They're the ones in the truck. They're the ones moving this load. So you want to make sure that number one, they're in a good mind space. You want to make sure
Mhm.
that they're rested. You need to let them know that, hey, we have you. If you have any issues that's going to take place, you can call us and we'll handle it. So many drivers have been lied to constantly by companies over promising and not delivering. They'll
Mm.
promise them a 2,500, 3,000 check weekly. But as we know, well, some people don't know, but since COVID, the market, after COVID, the market has drastically declined and it is doing it monthly declining. After the produce season passes, it's pretty much like rolling hay out here. The
And that's
loads are,
odd
you
because
gotta find them.
we
Oh, did
It looks
Cherie
like
go off?
yeah, it looks like she lost connection, it said.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, she'll be back on, but we can still talk about the drivers. What we have noticed with recruiting, since that's the topic we're talking about, you want to recruit the people who you know are going to mesh with your company and be beneficial. So, you'll ask them, questions on what do you like? Where would you like to run? What's been your past experiences? What don't you like? What do you look forward to? You want to make sure you get to know that driver so they'll be more willing to, see these jobs through. Because sometimes, guys, when they're going on these loads, because of what happened with the pandemic, warehouses aren't fully staffed. So they don't have enough people at these warehouse docks to help unload these trucks. So sometimes trucks sit for 3 to 5 hours when they only are supposed to have an unload window of 2 hours. These drivers are just sitting in these doors or sometimes in truck lots until they're able to get unloaded. I mean, I know I'm frustrated waiting for a gas pump. I can imagine frustration that they go through having to wait in a dock or at a gate to just be unloaded. And they do it. They do it. So when it comes down to recruiting, we make sure that we ask those questions up front. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me what you're looking for. What is your salary range? Where don't you like to go? Where do you like to go? Home time. We don't play about home time. These people are out on the road. When they want to go home, send your driver home. If your driver say he's tired, give him a day off. It really is about managing people. Like, yes, you manage your trucks. It is about your equipment, but it is about your driver as well. So that is one thing when I'm recruiting for MSK trucks, I'm looking for if you're going to be a good fit for the company, you know, how well can they understand systems? You know, if they like to buck the system, we don't want you here. We don't want you here. If you like to follow directions and you know what to do, you know how to go in and get it done, that's what we're looking for. And that's who we're looking to bring on the team. So I'm just glad that my sister Z likes me in the recruiting area and wants to expand that department. I think that's amazing. Hopefully I can, well, not hopefully, I know I can do well in it, but that is a different stream of income that goes into the trucking industry as well, is the recruitment department. And Z, you can add on any of that.
Oh no, I mean a driver without a driver, the truck doesn't move. So, building out a good program as far as compensation and just paying them on time is really what it comes down to. If you pay the driver every week, pay them every week. Don't let your driver call you asking where's my paycheck. That's the major issue that they have.
Never that.
Um, be transparent with your pay, how you calculate it, how it comes up. If you're going to pay cents per mile, agree from the beginning on what system you're going to use to calculate those miles. Um, and just be consistent with your drivers. If you do one thing for one driver, do it for all because they do talk somehow. At one point or another, they will all meet each other, especially when you start growing. I think at one time we had 4 trucks all at the yard and all the drivers were there. So, they exchange phone numbers, they talk to each other. And if you're doing one thing for one driver and the other driver finds out, you're done. You're so done. They're going to be calling you until you start giving everybody the same thing. So just be consistent with your drivers.
Definitely, or consistent with what you agree on their pay rate. Some get paid cent per mile, get paid the percentage of the rate con. Cent per mile was, the old way of trucking. Moving to percentages is trying to get the driver, more money for being out there on the road. Both of them still exist. Percentage, cents per mile, is whatever works best for you and that driver. And does anybody have any other questions while we wait for Cherie to come back?
Oh, and somebody asked for the link to where to purchase the green safety book. I did post that in the chat, the Amazon link for the green safety book.
All right, in the chat, any other questions? No. Well, guys, that's us in a nutshell. MSK Trucks, we are a one-stop shop. If you need dispatching services, compliance that deals with your audits, your driver files, just getting started, wanting to know about it, Z does have a course that she teaches you whatever department you would like to learn. It's so many dispatchers that she has done dispatching for that she's taught dispatching to so they can start dispatching for themselves. So that's a great thing about what she does. Her training courses, it builds you up to understand what you're doing, that you'll be out there to do it on your own. And you better believe those people still call her almost every other day, still asking questions. And my sister and I were like, send an invoice. Send the invoice. You got to be billed for the expertise. But yeah, so we are MSK Trucks, a transportation company. The trucking industry, it's out here. We know if the trucks aren't moving or having any of the supplies that we like, with the recession coming up, you know how the world is. Everybody like to buy all the toilet paper and the napkins and the water and all that stuff. It's the truckers that get those things to you.
Hey, I'm sorry, everybody. My computer. So I was like, I didn't want to shut my computer off because it may have kicked everybody out. So I'm so glad that you all were able to continue going. I didn't hear the last 10 minutes of what you said, so
Oh, we just
No,
finished
we,
talking
we were
about
just wrapping
recruiting.
up.
Okay, perfect. Well, I hope everybody got their questions answered. Were you able to see questions and answer them?
Yeah, there's a few questions that just came
Yeah.
in. We haven't answered those.
Okay. Kendra, you want to just lead the charge?
Oh, sure. Yes, let me add
Yeah.
this. Z, are you going to add the link to your course?
So
I
my
put the
course, I
website
do,
in there.
yeah. So for my course, I do a one-on-one, um, and I customize it to the individual, and I then record that and send it to them based on what they need, or what they're looking to get into. So, for example, if the individual just wants to learn
So
about
really, it's her
compliance.
telling me you were one-on-one with her.
Right. So my link is a Calendly. You just tell me what it is that you need. If it's something that it's not doable in 2 hours, I will let you know, and I will send you an invoice for that.
We were supposed to do this. We could have did it from the car station.
Hi,
Okay.
Shamika.
And I see how
I'm so
you deal with
sorry.
being a woman in the male-dominated business and or industry. I honestly think this is what gives us the one up with being a woman-owned business in a male-dominated industry. Everyone knows women get the job done. We we don't overpromise, we over-deliver is what we do. We gonna do the job for you and then give you some insight on how you could manage it better or how we can manage it better for you. Another thing is when it comes down to booking the loads, is certain information that you always have to give. When you're on top of that information to give, and when you're doing on time deliveries to make sure they get there on time, those are the things that separate us from other companies. Is that we're making sure that our drivers are aware, have their information, they get there on time. We build great rapport with the brokers. It's to the point they call us every day, hoping that we have a truck in the state that they're trying to run them. They want to give us dedicated lanes where we run those 4 to 6 times throughout the week. They want, because we ran a load for them and did so well with being on time, uploading the POD, which is the purchase on delivery. I think it's purchase on delivery. Correct me if I'm
Proof of
wrong.
delivery is the proof
Um,
of delivery.
Proof of delivery, excuse me. When you can upload that documentation and get that billing out, that's what they want to do. They want the loads ran, closed, and paid for. And as much as you can keep that going and keeping it on time, they love to work with you. So that is how we differentiate ourselves in this male dominated industry. We have on time deliveries, and the service that we deliver is already top notch. If you have questions or need anything, that's what we do. We deliver. If you have questions, we answer them on time. It's not even a 24-hour rate, it's more like a 15-minute rate. If I can get the message to Z on time, I'm like, Z, answer this question for them because I don't know. And we just work together well as a team. Everybody knows what they need to know. If they don't know, we just ask Z or ask my sister or, hey, Kendra, do you know where this person is? Brokers call at all times of the night. Hey, where's this driver? We know because we manage our ELD systems. We know what time they got there. We know what time they left. We know we're going to get extra money because you held our driver up. So we're going to bill you for detention. We don't play about those things.
Okay.
So that's
So y'all,
different.
let me tell you, the way you're talking, you all had better have very secure husbands and spouses to have strange men calling you all hours of the night. So
Listen, I
yeah,
think my boyfriend in particular, he has issues because there'll be drivers that do call me at 1 o'clock and I spring up out the bed to answer the phone and he's like, "Who is calling you?" I'm like, "It's a driver." So if any of my drivers call and I hear the phone ring, I spring up out the bed because that either means there's an emergency, they need a lumper code, something happened because drivers don't just call you just to, sometimes they do, but at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, they're not just calling you to say good night or good morning. They're calling because something went wrong or they need
yeah.
more assistance. So yes, my boyfriend has learned to hear the phone ring and be like, your phone is ringing. You're gonna get up. To the point that now he has a CDL and now he has to drive one of my trucks. Um, so he had to go get a CDL. That was the compromise there.
So I wanted to ask about the CDL itself. Because there are some people, who may want to actually go that route
Mhm.
and get their CDL and actually drive. Can you tell us anything about the process? I know there are trucking schools out there. Are there ways for men and women to, to get their CDLs for free? How do they get into the industry? Any information you have with regards to that?
Yeah, so um February 7th, 2022 was the day that changed the CDL securing forever. On February 7th of this year, regulation was passed, and now there's a certain number of course hours that have to be completed before you could get a CDL. Before February the 7th of this year, you were able to just go to DMV, get the CDL prep book, study the book, go schedule your test, and then learn how to drive a truck, and somebody, let somebody have somebody that lets you learn how to drive their truck, and then you could just go take the practical test and the written test at the DMV. If you pass, you got your CDL. So there were a certain number of things that occurred since when during that period of time. So since the beginning of time up until February the 7th, all that data that they collected with accidents and how new was the driver when the accident occurred and all of that, it led to FMCSA stepping in and saying no. Now, if you have to get a CDL after February the 7th, you are required to take this number of courses. You have to have these number of course hours, and it has to be by an approved uh, course entity by the FMCSA. Now, I want everybody to hear the fact that I'm saying course and I'm not saying school, because there was a lot of misinformation when this law changed in February, because everybody just made the assumption that now everybody had to go pay $6,000 to go to trucking school, and that was the only way to get a CDL. Well, that is inaccurate. That is not true. You are still able to get your CDL the old-fashioned way, meaning study yourself and go take the test. The difference is that now you have to pay, you have the option of paying for an online course. So FMCSA has a number of online CDL providers that they have authorized to offer their course hours online, where you pay anywhere. I've seen it as low as $189 all the way to $1,000 to take the. Now this is just a written course for you to be able to complete your course hours that get submitted to FMCSA. So you're able to take that course, complete those hours, have that submitted to FMCSA, and then you're able to go and have the practical portion done. For the practical portion, you have to bring your own truck. So if you've learned on somebody's truck, or if you know somebody that has a truck that teaches you how to drive or how to back up, how to do the pre-trip inspection, how to do all of that to pass, then you would just bring that truck with you and pass. There are ways of getting your CDL for free. Uh, there's there's two different ways. Way number one is, so when you are unemployed, I can't remember the acronym, but the unemployment office has a department that if you apply for, I guess it's called like credits for courses. A Class A CDL is one of those courses that the unemployment office will like give you a grant for you to go get technical training, and it is free. I know that the Department of Labor in Georgia had like a backlog, and it was taking people 6, 7 months to be able to get approved to get their CDL for free. But that's just government. That's just how they operate. So that's one way to get it free. Then there's a lot of the big companies. So you have Rail, Prime, CR England, Schneider. All of these big name companies have training schools, CDL training schools, either within the company or they have partnered with certain schools, that they will pay for your course, but you have to sign a anywhere from 1 year to 2 year agreement that you're going to drive for them and basically pay back for your CDL. So you go to the school, you do your hours, then you go drive for them, and then you have to drive for them for anywhere from 1 to 2 years to basically drive out that contract, and then you have a CDL that you never paid for. So that's a way of getting a CDL for free. And then there's other companies that will reimburse you. If you went and pay the money for your CDL, they will then reimburse you. But again, a lot of times takes a full year and a half to 2 years to get that full reimbursement.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Sada is saying if you're a returning citizen, there are trucking school programs that may be available in your state at no cost as well. So definitely check that out. I do want to bring on Shamika really quickly. Shamika also has a family business. She is in the restaurant business, believe it or not. I think it's fish fry, and she told me some of the stuff that's on her menu. I'm like, I'm coming over. Shamika, you there?
Yes, I'm here, Cherie. Thank you for having me on tonight.
Yes, it's Chef La's Fish Fry in Smyrna, Georgia, which
Yes,
is
Chef
five.
Box Fish Fry in Smyrna, Georgia. It's a family-owned and operated business. My husband and I, and we're actually on the road back from Tampa. Sorry, guys, but my dad passed this Sunday. Had to do all of the planning, so that's why we're here and not online with you guys. But yes, we've been in business now in Smyrna since 2013. Doing our numbers, growing, could do a little bit more in terms of social media growth and things like that. But we have a following. People love the food. And right now, it just wasn't anything in the Smyrna area. So lately, since we started in 2013, of course, a lot of things have been popping up, the juicy crabs and so forth. But it's just something about the way we do our fish, shrimp, and all of our side items that still kind of gives this home, mom and pop, a soul food type flair to it. And it's really what customers have been enjoying.
So you have to tell everybody, because we're about to wrap up now, but you have to tell everybody where to find you. If they're in Georgia, do you ship stuff out, anything like that, so that we can support the business?
Oh, please come and support us. Yes, we're located on 4924 South Cobb Drive in the Smyrna, Georgia area. We also are Chef La Fish Fry on Instagram and Facebook, so you can find us there. And we do everything homemade and scratch made. So we have our homemade signature juices, our Brooklyn juice, named after our daughter, which is our peach lemonade, strawberry lemonade, as well as our peach tea. We are actually award winning. We won for the Taste of Marietta a few years ago with our beverages, and we can ship those out to you as well, 16 ounces or your gallon varieties. So you can check us out online, www.cheflafishfry.com, and order yours, and we can send them out to you.
Perfect. And in the theme of today's conversation, tell us like one great thing you love about having a family business, and then one, downside slash cautionary piece of information with regards to having a family business.
The one thing I love, and the reason we set out to do it, honestly, is around generational wealth building. That's really the goal. And while, yes, it could be difficult to hand down the restaurant, it's a lot of work and so forth. But again, we're thinking of our products and things that we can now shift and put them into grocery stores, convenience stores, and things like that to, again, create that generational wealth. So that's the main goal, and to be able to give, family members that are coming up, jobs. I was able to employ my nephew at the age of 15, 16, so he can learn how to work and, make his keep, right? Own his keep. So all of that was very important to us when we started the business. I would say one downside is when your goals may start to differ from one another. Like I have different, like the restaurant and owning it, I've always wanted one. My husband is a chef, so of course it's his passion, but there are other things that I want to do and produce and manifest in the world as well. So all of those things, have to come together. They have to work. You have to constantly check in with each other and see where you are in the business, if this is something that you all want to continue to do and grow and shape and so forth. So now we're starting to think about what's next and how do we start to shape this for the future for us as well as our partners.
Yeah. Yeah, it is tough to quit the family business. That's one thing I will say. When my mom, my business started like getting traction, but she couldn't quite let me go. And if she were not my mother or not family, I could just say, peace, 2-week notice, bye. But I ended up having to stay in the family business for like 4 years after I really should have left, because it was the family business. So while it's easier to get into the family business, it is harder to back away from it, because the family really is relying on you. And it's not like you'll never see these people again. It's like, no, Thanksgiving, Christmas, church on Sunday, things like that. So yeah, but look, I do still recommend, even if people start like a family investment club or something like that, if you feel, that your family should have a family business, I definitely recommend it, so that we can start passing along generational legacy. So with that, that's the end of our time. Thank you so much, Kendra, Z, Shamika, for being here. I know a lot of people have questions. You all can definitely reach out to Z with regards to trucking and things like that. Kendra, congratulations to you and joining the family business. And Shamika, thanks for popping on in. Next time, we'll get you hopefully at a time where we can really get you for an hour and talk a lot more about what you have going on in the empire that you're building. Okay. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thanks, Sheree.
Bye-bye.